Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Strike a Spark podcast. I am one of your hosts, Ray Hayes, and alongside me I have Big Mike. How's it going, man?
What's up, bro? I'm tired.
Hey, man. I feel it. I feel it so hard. And then, of course, we have our wonderful guest, Mike Falzone. How are you doing?
Hello. It's good to see you guys again.
Yes, this is great. We've done this twice now, and it feels good.
This was the one.
Oh, absolutely. And so, what was I talking about before? Yes, I remember.
You were saying about how you have a podcast?
Yes, I do have a podcast. This is a great podcast, and we are totally fantastic right now. We're just doing great things. For those of you who don't know, we are Strike a Spark podcast, and of course, we interview people that are multi-hyphenates that do multiple things that don't want to be tied down to one particular thing. And of course, for those of you who don't know, Mike Falzone is a comedian. We talked about this before, and now I'm just like telling everybody, which is hilarious.
Yes.
Comedian, photographer, musician, podcast host, of course. Mm-hmm. Two great podcasts, by the way, I should say.
Oh, thank you very much.
Of course. And just tell us about yourself besides, what I literally just said.
I mean, that's most of it. But yeah, man, I'm just, I've come from creative parents. My mom was an artist, and she, I don't know, I just fell in love with making stuff at a very young age. And then I always wanted to figure out how to make stuff for a living. And I guess what I found out functionality-wise was that in order to make whatever you want for a living, you have to do a lot to sustain yourself in the meantime. And then I guess what I've learned, this is like the shortest possible version of this whole, like if your whole podcast was 5 minutes, it would go from that statement to the older you get, you figure out that it's not always easy to depend on other people who have their own, goals and work ethics or lack thereof. So the more you can handle for yourself, the faster you can go further. So I just decided to learn a bunch of skills, and as they pertain to like helping me in gaining traction as a comedian and trying to be self-sufficient the whole time and trying to eat and pay rent. And eventually you just accumulate a bunch of skills, and that's what I have now. And that's why you see me in this luxurious kitchen. That's a microwave. I don't want to brag, but that is somebody else's fridge. And this is what we've built for ourselves.
You got the stainless steel fridge, though. It's
Yes. Yeah, no ice maker or anything like that, but it does look nice.
Hey, sometimes that's all that matters, the looks, not the functionality.
Yeah, it's all aesthetics. I live in Los Angeles, so it's only looks are important.
That is so true. Holy shit. Oh.
exactly.
Yeah. It's not even plugged in the fridge.
The food just sits on the counter.
Yeah. The food's in a Postmates car right now.
So if I'm not mistaken, I know you have a business degree, right?
No, you are mistaken. I have a communications degree. What did I was a communications and film major. I think I double majored at the end.
Hey.
Okay. So going from that into like where you are now, was that always the plan, or is that just something that kind of just ended up happening with it's like with where you are now? Or like, I mean, obviously this would be a long time ago, but of course, like I wouldn't imagine like when you were going to college you're like, I want to be a comedian and I want to do all this stuff. So how did that plan come to fruition?
I feel attacked right now. I'm not.
No, I mean it wasn't that much different than that. It was I wanted to be. I had my mind made up that I was going to be a musician, and my going to college meant a lot to my parents, and my parents did a really good job, and I never wanted to let them down. So I went there. I knew it would be beneficial, like in case things didn't work out or whatever. They say don't have a plan B, but I never wanted to like live on the street or anything like that. So I wanted to
Right.
go to college and give myself the best chance of like doing okay no matter what worked out. Because I was very level-headed even though I wanted to be a, a musician, singer-songwriter, I knew that there was a good chance, not everybody makes it. So if I could at least have enough knowledge to have be helpful to somebody else if that didn't work out. So I went to college. I actually didn't get accepted to the college that I ended up graduating from. And I had to take extra classes in the summer in between high school and college to matriculate like into the system. So I was like the Rudy of Fairfield University. And that whole time I wanted to be a musician, and I wanted to, I guess kind of have a little bit of a safety net.
Okay.
And then things kind of just like evolved from there. I fell in love with like college is kind of where I learned how to edit video stuff. And it was very primitive back then. I think it was, there was Final Cut 6 and there was like the first version of iMovie. And it all took a long time and it was very clunky. But it was also like the first time like digital editing was widely available to like anyone who would get a Mac had iMovie. So we all learned how to use that. And then I graduated in like 2006. I guess I was still a senior in 2006. And yeah, I graduated later that year. And I just had access to all this stuff. And I was, like I said, a musician at the time. And the smart plan being a musician was to just put your music out there any way you could. So YouTube also started in January 2006. So I started putting stuff on YouTube, and I just kept at it. And eventually, something would hit here or there, and then, I'd get a handful of people here and a handful of people there. And that's kind of been my thing ever since. And the only thing that's really changed is I, kind of fell out of love with playing music and being a singer-songwriter, and I fell more in love with talking to people in between the songs. And so that kind of naturally flowed into being a comedian and all the different things that come with that. And that's it. I love making stuff. I love making all kinds of things. Like with the photography stuff, that was the thing that I did to sustain myself while I had 12 other jobs. I would be an apprentice to a comedian or a photographer who would photograph weddings and stuff. And then they'd be like, you know how to shoot video, right? And edit video. And I'd be like, yeah. And then that would like enrich their package that they could give to, the people getting married. They're like, well, we now offer video because we have this kid who does video. Right. So I was able to... I had traditional jobs, like 9 to 5 stuff. And then at night, I would play music. And then on the weekends, I would try to have more creative jobs that would also pay me some money. So you don't grow up with a ton of friends doing that, but you do grow up with a lot of experience and you meet a lot of people. And, you make stuff every day and you figure out what you want to do eventually.
Absolutely. So we are talking about just like how things just kind of flow into one thing and then how it all kind of naturally happens. Is that, because I'm trying to phrase this question because we did kind of talk about it already, but like, was it ever a reason for you to like end up doing all these things at once? Like, did you want to be a photographer, a comedian, all of these things at once? Or is it just because you ended up having so many skills and as a creative person, you're always like kind of doing things everywhere, so it just kind of ends up being that way? Or is it more so that it just kind of ended up happening because, that's kind of what you did?
Well, it's maybe half functional and half like I want to make whatever I want when I feel like making it, and I don't want to wait for anyone else. So that's the functionality part of it. It's like the more I can do on my own, the less I have to wait for someone who's like dragging their ass or You come up with a good idea and you tell your friends about it, and they're all going to be like, yeah, that's going to be awesome. We're going to make all this money. And then, 6 months in, people's priorities change. And I just got sick of dealing with that. And I knew that at least I wasn't going to let myself down.
Right.
So I didn't want to be disappointed by other people because I've been through that 1,000 times. So I was just like, I'll beef up my skills to do whatever I want to do and not really have much of a delay on that. And a lot of people don't want to do that because it's way easier to fall short in a certain area instead of gaining the skill yourself or finding the right person. You just say, oh, well, this person bailed on me, so that's why that thing didn't happen. Meanwhile, like, you don't know how good that thing could have been because you'd rather like blame that person and have it be done than be like, okay, now I'm going to watch YouTube videos or take a class or whatever and do the work to gain that skill so I could realize the final vision of the thing. So, I mean, half of it's out of spite. Like, I learned all these skills so I didn't have to talk to anybody else. Because people talk a lot, but they don't, whatever. But it's not all bad. I also love doing all the things. Like, I don't do photography because no one else is going to take photos, so I guess I'll do it. Like, I really love doing it. And there's nothing better sometimes than, like, fast forward all the way to today, I do stand-up, and I'll also help other shows by, I'll get hired to take photos at their shows, and I really enjoy doing it. So if I don't necessarily have a show or whatever, at least I could still be at one, which is a part of the whole, as you know, Mike, is a part of the whole like stand-up culture anyway. You got to be out all the time. And I'm like a little bit older. I'm 36. So once I got into my 30s, I was like, I'll hang out, but I'm not just going to do nothing. Like I can make your show better. You take shitty cell phone pictures and you post them on Instagram and you wonder why no one gives a shit about your show. It's because it doesn't look fun. It looks grainy and shitty. It looks like security camera footage. So I was like, dude, I can make your show better. So all of a sudden you're adding value to not only like your peers, but you're lifting up people. It's all perception on the internet. So if you make a bunch of comedians look really good by lighting them real nice and taking portraits and taking like dynamic pictures of them on stage, it helps their career and they're getting it for free just because they were on a show. So now you provide value to the comedy community as a whole, So I'm still doing stand-up and writing and being out and networking and helping the community. And it all like, it's all hard work, but it's all very efficient and purpose-driven, and it feels good. And that came from years of just like messing around and being bad at stuff until you weren't anymore. Mm-hmm. So, half of it's necessity and half of it's just because I just really, really like making stuff. Like I was saying before, I'll go to a show and I'll take pictures and then I'll sleep on the files, and then I'll wake up and I'll make coffee, and then I'll just zone out and edit photos for the next 3 hours. And then you have all these beautiful things that you get to, hopefully beautiful things, if the lighting is okay, that you get to send to people and make them happy and make them feel good about themselves. So it's a very it's a lot, but it's fulfilling and it's worth it. Absolutely.
Do you ever feel like a pressure to maintain your quality with everything that you're doing, or is it, like you said, because you love doing it so much, it just comes naturally that you don't feel like you need to be doing everything at once? It's just like, I love it, so I'm going to continue doing everything I do.
I offloaded a lot of work at certain points in my career because you just can't be super good and super on top of everything all the time. It's not realistic. So I try to not take on more than I can handle, and then I try to best myself with the things that I am doing. So there is a pressure to maintain like a higher quality of stuff, and I don't hit it all the time. I try to hit it as much as possible, but it's like an internal thing. I don't feel pressure from other people. I'm like, I always want to do better than I did, or else like, what's the point?
Absolutely.
I understand that.
Mm-hmm.
That's like the biggest thing. I'm just gonna relate to you on comedy for this. It's like the biggest thing in comedy because you can go out there and you can nail it or you can bomb or whatever, but the person who has to get back up and get back onto the stage is you. Like, especially starting out from like a young comedian like myself. I don't have a team where it's like, all right, you didn't do so well. Here's next 3 shows. It's like, I didn't do so well. Let me find another open mic to go to and maybe try the same jokes or different jokes or feel the crowd out more or build up those like social awareness skills and being out there. You gotta take a step into that boundary. And I understand
and you might.
that.
I mean, I know a lot of comedians who, like, well-established comedians who never end up having that team or had that team and got rid of the team because of what we were talking about before. You know, like, no one's going to work harder for you than you. That was the best advice I ever got. The guy his name is Derek Shivers, I think. He used to run this website called CD Baby, which is back in the day.
CD
That's
Baby.
how everyone got CDs
yeah.
made. And so I was talking to him once, and that was like his big takeaway. And I was like, oh, fuck, you're right. And it's so easy with social media and then being around a lot of people. It's so easy to fall into the trap of like comparing yourself to what everybody else is doing, but that it never matters. It just matters that you're doing your best and you're doing, you know, if you have the energy a little bit better than you did yesterday, and then you see yourself progress, and then that's when other people start to notice.
Oh, for sure.
Then they want to jump on the bandwagon.
Oh,
yeah. And then you have to not be bitter when you're like, I've been doing this shit for 15 years, and you just found out. You have to be like, oh, yeah.
Yeah, sure, bro.
Figuring it out.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah, it's so interesting, I feel like, especially like this day and age where there are so many ways to... I guess specifically I'm talking about like social media when it comes like there are so many specific ways that you can kind of do everything. And like more so I'm thinking about like TikTok, where it's like there are so many different like creative people on there that can have like a bout of success and have their whole careers just shoot off from that one thing. And then you have like other people that like are working their entire lives, and it's like there's such like a disconnect, I feel like, for those people that kind of just shoot up into that kind of thing. And
well, it's easy come, easy go. You know, if you get 1 million views and 1 million followers on something, on one thing, on Wednesday,
right,
there's nothing to keep them tethered to you for the long run. You know what I mean? It's like as soon as they see you, they'll bounce if it's not a consistent, if they feel like they can't rely on you for consistently good stuff. So that's why, like, you know, I tell people to take time, and also, you know, my whole career has been the slow burn thing. Like I was saying before, it's like 5 people here, 5 people there, 5 people here, 5 people there, forever. It's not like a million people all at once, and that's how you get people who like have your back for the longevity of your career.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I throw out the argument all the time. Sorry, Ray. I throw out the argument all the time that going viral kind of sucks. Because, like, say you jump into it just, like, right off the rip. You know, just top of the head, I'm going to do something, or comedian standpoint, I'm gonna just, like, record myself telling a joke. And then, like, 2 million people like it. Now, that off the rip, I'm going to do this for the heck of it, becomes, now I gotta up that. And I gotta up that. And I gotta up that. Like, I know a friend of mine who went viral. Name's Dylan Tate. He ran Daily Effects on TikTok. And he wanted to get better at After Effects. So he made a TikTok and was like, I'm just going to add an effect to this video throughout the entire year. Did that. First week, 1.7 million people.
Oh, my
Wow.
God.
Just by adding an effect to a video. And then he was like, well, shoot, now I got to plan out the whole year. I got to up the effects. I have to figure out all this new stuff. And it becomes such a stress on him that, like, halfway through, well, this isn't the only reason, but, like, halfway through, he kind of just, like, stopped uploading. Now there's like some other stuff with he burned out, and then there's some other stuff with like TikTok and whatever. They kept banning his videos because they thought it was the same video. But you know, all of that stuff piles up on you, and I'm like slow burning, honestly. is the way.
Yeah, the slow burn, doing whatever feels best to you at the moment. The saddest thing that I see young creators fall into is to be kind of like beholden to the algorithm. And that's what happens is like, like I had a TikTok blow up that was just like I was working out. Me and my wife were working out. So the easiest like algorithmic thing to do would be to be like, I'm the workout comedian now, and the way like if you see me, that's how you explain to me, that's how you explain to your friends who I am. Like there's this guy on TikTok and he works out with his wife. Now I gotta do 2 videos a day every day of me working out with my wife when my head and my heart want to do 1,000 other things. So I was always like, and this was much to my career's detriment over and over again for over the past 15 years, is I never want to do one thing. And it doesn't make it easy for people to, for everyone, that mass group, to stick with you all the time. Because they're like, I followed you because you're the funny workout guy. I don't care about you being funny on a golf course, or I don't care about you being funny on stage with a microphone. Like, do an exercise and say a thing, And I'm like, I'm not going to do that. So what happens when you confront that in real life? Somebody would be like, okay, then I'm out. So then those people leave. And what I see with a lot of people who don't want to do the same thing is, one, they get burnt out, like you were saying with your friend with the visual effects thing. Yeah. And also it's like they get real bitter, and then everything, again, becomes everybody else's fault because they're beholden to this like style that doesn't feel right with what they really want to do. It doesn't line up with like their real passion or whatever. Maybe they haven't even discovered that yet, but now to get a certain amount of views every video, they have to like be this thing. And it sucks. And it sucks to see young people get burnt out. Yeah. Because you have all this energy and you have all this potential, and then you're like, okay, I guess I'm the drink wacky things guy. So like, you can, if that's what your heart wants to be, dude, but don't fucking, you know what I mean?
Oh man, there's a streamer on Twitch. I don't know if he made this into his thing, or does he just really have a terrible taste in snacks.
It's the guy who eats bottles and stuff.
No. Well, there is that guy, but it's a dude. He actually eats food, but it's like the worst food combinations ever. Like one was like a raw egg in mayonnaise and peanut butter.
Oh no!
And then his chat,
throw up.
Yeah. His chat blew up, and they were like, dude, that's disgusting. So next stream, he comes back, he's like, all right, I see. You don't like the raw egg. Fine. Now I got an avocado with mustard. And I'm like, what?
Yeah.
How?
And can you do that every day for years and years and be happy? I don't know.
Think he's happy
maybe.
I wouldn't be. Absolutely not.
But
that kind of stuff is crazy.
Yeah. It's weird because it's all like, this is all happening in we witnessed the birth of all this stuff in our lifetime. So people are going to screw it up and screw their lives up 1,000 times before, this is the right way to do it or whatever. Absolutely. But I'm a pretty happy person, and I don't have billions and billions of followers, but I have a pretty good life, and I work real hard, and there's still things that I want to do. And, I have a nice wife, and she doesn't hate me, and I don't hate myself. So I feel like I'm living it the right way. And I try to, so many people just want to blow up, and they see what blows you up, and then they do that, and then they fall into the ruts that we're all talking about. And I try to tell people, I'm like, you could do whatever you want to do if you just take your time and you have patience. But no one wants to do the work, and no one wants to take time. Not no one, but most people.
Right. No, absolutely.
That's hard to convince some. You can't convince someone into a work ethic.
Oh, for sure.
I was
talking to somebody recently about just industries in general, and we brought up how film has been around for over 100 years, and then you have video games which have been around for maybe since the 70s, And then you have social media and all of this stuff that has maybe within the last decade has only barely like gotten to a point. Like I remember days on Twitter where like big tweets were like a couple thousand likes, and now you're getting like 250,000 or like so many different, like so many likes on tweets. And it's like, I feel like it's an interesting place to be, because like how do you regulate that kind of stuff? Because it comes up, it's a whole thing. It's like, is social media, how do you regulate that as a career? You know, because it's like, there's so many different things about it. And it's like, it's crazy that we don't have, it's like, what I'm trying to get back to is like, we don't have that much experience with it. And like we were just talking about, it's like, you type in something on your Twitter one day, next thing you know, you have 500,000 likes on something. And you're like, where did that come from? Who am I? Like, what is going on?
Dude, it's so much better if you just like, my friend Robbie Hoffman was talking about it in a video clip that I saw the other day. And she was talking about how you just, they tweet something and then they just leave it. And that's it. Yeah. That's what you did. Mm-hmm. And you're like, you don't live and die on what happens with that thing. You know, you tweet something you think is funny or whatever, if that's what you feel like doing, and you don't sit there and obsessively check it and be like, what does this mean to my career? How could I leverage this into something else? You know, if you're a creative person, you go and you create your stuff for you. And once you start shifting and shaping what you make to appease, you know, this audience, you lose your identity as a artist. And once you start being like beholden to the algorithm, like we were saying before, it just becomes mush. It becomes this gray matter that's just like kind of a version of the first thing that popped off. And that's not interesting. You might have somebody's attention for a while, but it's not sustainable.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. That's the scary thing about it all too. Like we've brought it up so many times. It's like, how do you even like? I feel like that goes into like mental health too, because it's like, I feel like especially we have so much like information blasted at us at all times, at all levels, and when something that you do blows up, and then all of a sudden you have like 30,000 people just trying to talk to you at once, you're just like, how does my mind handle this? I feel like that's a whole like other thing that like not a lot of people like deal with, you know? And so it's just like, it's kind of scary, because it's like, as people, like how do you handle that? You know, it's crazy.
It's also very telling. It's like, what part of it makes you happy?
Yeah.
You know, like, are you happy that the thing you did gets 1 million views every time you post it, but you hate doing the thing? Or are you happy? So is it the views that make you happy, or the likes and the interaction? Or is it you're making yourself happy based on what you make?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, I'll do this one day, and then I'll do this, and this will get way less views, but is getting less views going to make you unhappy? Or is doing the thing that your heart wanted to do and you were creatively driven to do going to make you happy? Absolutely. And I always chose that kind of stuff, because I would rather be happy, you know, without the phone or without the numbers underneath the video in real life than to be dependent on somebody else's website and somebody else's math equation or whatever to look at that and be like, okay, 50,000, 100,000, now I'm happy. That's sad as fuck. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. It's
sorry.
I totally get that, because like for me personally, like whenever I try to create something, I have this past year specifically, I mean, I guess pandemic in general, so since March of last year, I've always come to the conclusion about, like, when it comes to things that I want to make, I thought that there was like, let me do this so I can build up my portfolio or do this so I can do that. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But at the same time, it's like, am I just doing this for the sake of doing it, or should I be happy doing it? And like, I'll like put up like a TikTok video like once every like 2 months, you know, or like I'll post on Instagram, like just because like I had a good idea. I'm like, all right, yeah, let me do this and let me see. I don't really care about like what people think about it anymore, because like I don't want to be beholden to that, like you were saying. And it's like,
right.
Once I have that itch, then I'll definitely pursue it. It's not like I want to be like, okay, I'm forcing myself to do this every week, every day, and I'm just gonna, if it's shit, it's shit. You know, I don't want to do that. It's not.
There's also
it's not
a part
healthy,
of it, right? There's also a part of it where like, you guys are how old?
26.
21.
21. So you're a little baby, and you're in the stage of your life where like, you should just be trying everything to figure out what you like. Like, I didn't do anything worth listening to or talking about or watching until I was like 27 years old. And I was making stuff for years before that happened.
Right.
And it has even changed since then. But it's like, you know, you do all this stuff and you become efficient and self-sufficient in all this stuff. And then eventually you're just like, I am drawn to making this kind of thing. This kind of thing makes me happy. And you figure out how to make that to the best of your ability. And you know, welcome the people that hang on, and you say goodbye to the people who are not interested. And you don't, you know, I think so many people are like, how do I get everybody to like me? Mm-hmm. And that doesn't matter. You get the people who, you want the people who will hang on to you as like a creative person. And that's not everybody. Everyone's not for everyone. You know, being a comedian, you know that, you know, humor, it's subjective. Not everyone's going to think you're funny, but you don't have to fuck with the people who don't think you're funny.
Yeah.
You know?
I remember, I don't remember, I think this was on Dynamic Banter. You were talking about how in one of your TikToks, there is a dude that like said something really negative, and then you went to his page, and then you were just positive, and then he was like, "Oh, now you're just coming to me just to be like, just to feel like high and mighty," and I'm just like, that really like stuck with me, because I was like, that's a him problem, not us, you know. It's like, not you.
Yeah.
It's just like, I feel you shouldn't put yourself in situations where you feel that way, you know?
Right.
And it's like,
it's
you
also
follow
like, that
Go
was,
ahead, sorry.
it's mostly out of spite and frustration. And a lot of that comes from, dude, part of me is like still happy that I did that. And part of me is like, you didn't have to do that. And the truth is I didn't have to do it, but I guess there's something to be said for, like, I've been on YouTube for like 16 years, and every creative thought I've had as a grown-up is on the internet somewhere. You know what I mean? So after 16 years of like mostly anonymous, faceless people saying whatever they want about you at all times, in real life, where I come from, if you're going to say something to someone, you got to stand by it, you know? Yeah. And there's a consequence to saying the wrong thing to the wrong person at the wrong time.
Absolutely.
And not to be like, I'm not trying to be violent or tough or anything. I'm just saying, if you're a grown up and you make a comment about someone specific, you have to stand by it. And especially if you're challenged, you can't just be like, don't talk to me.
Oh,
don't. You're supposed to be bigger than this. I'm like, no. You said the thing, so now I'm here. So say it. Say the thing. And most of the time, and I got some flack on that, and I don't care, because the people who gave me flack don't have to live this life either. But I'm saying after 16 plus years of being, you know, just on the internet and giving the internet everything for free and hearing whatever anyone wants to say about me at all times, I think I like to check people every now and again. And I like to be like, this is why you can't say whatever you want to people, because I'm smart and I'm creative and I can make you feel terrible about yourself if you want. And
yes.
I don't always have the energy
That's
to be the
hecklers in
bigger
a
person
nutshell.
because yeah. Hecklers are great because they do it to your face and then you do it back to them to their face and you make them instantly realize why they cannot do that.
Yeah.
And the internet is like, you don't have to have any credentials. You don't have to know what the fuck you're talking about. You just have to have a keyboard and an internet connection.
Right.
You know? So if you come back at that person and then other people are like, be the bigger person. I'm like, truth of the matter is, I've been the bigger person since this has started. And if I feel like, if I, the person who's been giving you free entertainment for 16 years, feel like asking someone what they mean by a comment, I'm going to do, that's my right as like the creative person in the situation.
Absolutely.
You know? And if you were to do that with everyone who's ever said anything negative, then you would have no time to do anything else. So it's not an all the time thing. But it was like we're saying with all this other stuff. That's what I felt like doing that day. So that's what I did. That was part of my artistic journey.
I like to stick by, who was it? Bill Burr on Good Morning America. Yeah, Bill Burr. Good Morning America. He was like, I did a show and I saw someone tweeted about my shirt. So I responded and they're like, why don't you just leave it alone? It's because it's fun.
Yeah,
talking to people on the internet.
And
it's
you
fun.
did that. You did that. As the person who talked about the shirt, you felt the need to go online and you didn't like think about the shirt. You didn't turn to whoever's next to you and you're like, how about that shirt? You made it for everyone. Yeah. And like this person who commented the thing on my TikTok, you commented the thing on my TikTok. And then I said, huh? And then you said, whoa, you shouldn't be doing this. What's wrong with you, dude? Stand by your shit. Be enough of like a person to like stand by your statement or take it down or apologize or do something. But know that like for the most part, none of what you say to me matters because you just got here and I've been doing this for 16 years and you're going to be gone tomorrow and I'm going to still be here. So just don't be surprised if you are, you know, coming out of the side of your neck to someone and they say, what did you say? You know, be enough of a person to stand behind what you're saying, I guess. Or you take the time and you be the bigger person for once, commenter, and you take a second guess on what you're saying, you know?
I feel like that's kind of been like the crux of social media specifically. It's like when it comes to someone saying something and then like the whole ratio thing, you know, and then I always feel like they always have to come back and justify themselves rather than just own up to what they say and just be a better person and just be like, I understand what I said was fucked up. I apologize.
Sometimes that happens.
I get it. Sometimes
that happens.
It's so rare when it happens and it makes me feel so good inside. And I'm just like, wow, this person
has a chance.
Yeah.
But that's real. That's a real thing. Then you make like a real. If we come online and say I don't like your video, fuck you, and then I comment back, guess what? Fuck you. That's nothing. Nothing has been done. But if you make like a change in someone's life as a stranger from 3,000 miles away because you had an interaction, like that's something. And then the artistic part of all of us is trying to find the meaning behind stuff and like why everything happens. And that's, you know, you tell the world about yourself and you try to figure out stuff. We're on the earth for this amount of time and we try to figure out why shit happens. So the interesting, beautiful part of that is like, why did somebody feel the need to do that? And for the most part, it's like, you know, especially on TikTok where you're put in front of a bunch of strangers and it's kind of like trial by fire. It's like a lot of people will see you and internally think that they're better than you or more talented, but they don't have the drive and they don't have like the stick-to-itiveness to do it for the past 15 years or whatever. And that bothers something inside of them. And then that comes out as like, this video sucks. Well, does it suck? Or do you just think you're better than me, but I have the drive and you don't?
Right.
You know, you think you're better than me and you're not where I am, but I'm here and that bothers you.
Yeah.
You know? So you could either look at the fuck you and say, is it a fuck you for saying the sake of fuck you? Or is it like this person revealing something about themselves in the comment section of something I made?
Mm-hmm. I think it would be so nice if we were given all the time in the world, if anyone had ever said shit on something, to sit down with them and be like, what is this? Why did you do that? What's going on in your life? Why do you feel this way? Because I feel like that's the shitty thing about social media, is that we don't get that time to, and I feel like people don't want to have that time to discuss those. They just want to blurt their feelings and leave.
Yes.
But it's like, I feel like
without
it would be
consequence.
Oh yeah, it's like, I just feel like there could be so much more good coming from those conversations if we were to give that time to be like, yo, if you want to sit down and talk about why you said this, like, I would love to have that conversation, because not that I want you to be a part of like what I'm doing, but like in the future for any other person that you're like angry at, it's like, you know, kind of think about the shit that you say, because like it'd be important to have that conversation, I feel.
Absolutely. And I think that's why people are so divided now. It's because it's so much easier to say, to drop a fuck you and bounce, or to argue with all the time in between discourse, you know, with zero credentials. Like, you'd rather argue because you're sleep deprived or hungry or whatever the fuck, than to actually go out and make any real kind of difference. And my new thing is, and I'm working on a bit about this right now, but it's like, before I give half a shit about what you say on the internet about someone, if you're going to talk shit about someone, I need to know everything bad that you've ever done, or else I don't trust your opinion. Like, if you're going to say this person sucks and that's why this person sucks, I'm like, okay, I read it. What is wrong with you? Because you're coming at it from a point of like a benevolent, flawless human being, you know? And I don't trust that. I'm like, you tell me your shit, and you know, like, this is the way it goes. I'm going to do that thing where I drop a bit in casual conversation, and I'm sorry for that. I apologize. But I say, I'm a little, I'm Mike Falzone. I'm a little overweight. I unfairly expect myself out of people, and I wait too long to cut my fingernails, and I think celebrity boxing is fucking stupid. And that's the whole thing. Like, that's, you know, a little bit about me, and now I'm telling you a little bit about you, and we're back to even. You know, it's not coming at you from like a condescending whatever. It's like, I'll humiliate myself. You know, it's like how Eminem won in 8 Mile. He took all the ammunition away from the other guy. His whole verse was like, I'm this mom spaghetti, or whatever the fuck he said. I don't know what he said. It was a long time
That line's
ago.
definitely in there for sure.
But it's like, you know, you show people that you're human first, and you give them a reason to trust you, and then they decide whether or not they care about your opinion.
Absolutely. I feel like that's very important to do that in the context of social media, because like you were saying, it's like, you don't want, like, why would you want to come at somebody sideways for something when you are not, like, what is it? Like, take the stick out of, if you're trying to take the plank out of, if you're trying to take a stick out of somebody's eye, make sure you take the plank out of yours first, or some shit like that. I don't know.
There's 1,000 like that. You just substitute sticks and planks.
Honestly,
for a bunch of different.
It's like, I just feel like it's very important to just be like, look at yourself first. Like, you can't,
like, no one gets taught the glass house thing anymore for some reason.
Yeah.
Like, people in glass houses shouldn't throw stones. Like, what about having a phone makes you impervious to, like, why should anyone care about your opinion on anything? Just because you have a phone? Just because you pay T-Mobile $70 a month? I have to, like, care about the shit that you say? No one cares. What have you done?
Oh my God, absolutely. It's ridiculous. You can get a phone for like $30 and you think you're the king of the world.
Get a burner, dude. Absolutely. Like, you didn't even go through the trouble of putting your own profile picture up. Why should I give a fuck what you have to say? No one cares.
Absolutely. I wanted to sidebar real quick, because this is your coffee, Mike. And I
Yes.
just want to
Oh,
say,
thank you. The
goddamn, it's
Malabar?
good. Yes.
Yeah, dude. Coffee roaster.
I've been telling, like, it's so good. It's so good, man.
It's my favorite coffee that I've ever had.
It's so, my God, like, it's so. I don't know. I've just got into coffee this year, so
okay. Welcome.
It's great. Thank you for having me. I got like, I think it's like a light roast, right? If I remember, I threw away the bag. But it's a light
I don't
roast,
like real acidic. You know,
Yeah.
I don't like feeling like I have to throw up first thing in the morning.
When I put it, I had a medium roast and a medium dark roast, and then I came across yours, and I'm like, oh shit, of course I want to try this, and it changed. I'm not trying to like be a walking advertisement for you right now, but it's like
no.
It's
Dude,
so
it's
good.
more of a. I'm glad you like it. And thank you very much for getting that. But obviously, we have nothing to do with the making of the thing. We just know when we moved here, there was a place that we found that instantly had our favorite cup of coffee, and it's like this little mom and pop shop, and it's like very, very small. You can only fit like 6 people in there. And we're like, you know, during the pandemic, when everybody's talking about like helping small business and stuff like that, we're like, how can we help these people stay in business? Because we look forward to going to them so much. And so we just teamed up with them and we just rebranded their coffee. But like buying that, you know, we get $1 or $2 from it, and then they get the majority of the money, and then they get to stay open and help all the people that they help every morning. And it's just nice. It's nice to have a bunch of people benefit from a situation.
That's amazing. Like, that's cool. I was gonna ask like the process of that, and you just told me, so that's amazing.
The Coffee Roaster in Sherman Oaks, California, on Ventura Boulevard.
Okay, that's not too far from me.
Would you say that was the best thing you did over the whole pandemic quarantine thing?
No, best thing I did was take a goddamn break for a little while. Take a guiltless break. Because that's the other thing, as you know, a person who does a lot of stuff. That's what your whole show is about.
Yeah.
You don't, when you start working for yourself, right? I won't make it about other people. When I started working for myself, and my wife is very similar, it's like now we have this life where we have this mentality that if we stop working, even for a healthy amount of time, a couple days at a time, then no money is coming in. And then it all stops, and then everything goes away. Yeah, I've had that mentality since I was like maybe 22, 23 years old. And that's not a super healthy way to think. So last year, being forced to take like a guilt-free break because everyone's on break felt really good. And it helps you recharge, and it helps you gain perspective, because you can't get perspective on a situation when you're in it. You know, you have to take a break, and you have to like zoom out, and you have to look at it. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So that was the best thing I did over quarantine, but the coffee was second.
No, yeah, I feel like I talked about this with a couple friends recently. It's just like the way quarantine forced us all to look at ourselves and understand who we are. Because like I feel like, especially like for being in LA, I mean, I would imagine Florida, you know, same stuff. No, not talking shit about Florida, but
we ain't do nothing, dog. I didn't even know the country was closed.
But like talking about just like being go all the time, especially just like as multi-hyphenates in general, you know, just everyone's just like, we don't ever think about stopping, because it's like, okay, I have this project going on, or I'm doing this, or I've got something else going on, and it's like you don't do it until you're forced to, you know. And so literally April of last year, when we were all forced to stop and take a breath and be like, what is my life right now? Because everyone was making bread, everyone was watching Tiger King, everyone was like, you know, doing so many different things that they didn't do before, you know. And it's like you were forced to look at yourself and be like, what is it that I like? What is it that I love? What is it that I want to do? And
what's
how
worth
can
putting
I
your time into?
Absolutely.
We are not about to slide past what you just said. Making bread? Who was making bread?
Who wasn't making bread, bro? A lot
People
of
were making bread?
Yes.
Yeah. Specifically sourdough bread. Everyone was making sourdough bread.
What?
Did you have the internet during quarantine?
I I don't know about you, but like I said, Florida was open, so I don't know what you're talking about.
Right. There's no time to make bread in Florida.
Yeah, people was at the beach. I did a couple of comedy shows. It was great.
Right.
Well, when you get the chance,
great.
make some bread, man.
Well,
Some
when
bread.
you're locked in your house and you're like, how can I go to the store the least amount of times? Like, wait a minute, I can make bread. And it was nice because then you always, I mean, the bread, Ray, the bread sucks out here anyways.
Absolutely.
So if you could like make bread in your house and then have like hot, warm, oven baked bread, that's what we looked forward to because we couldn't go outside. Like, oh, you put a fence around the beach? I guess I'll just make hot bread.
This
The
shit sound
correlation
like
is very strong.
shit sound like some medieval times. Wake up in the morning. Let me make
Malone,
some bread.
It was no different. Quarantine was no different from medieval times until the vaccine came out, and then everything was different.
Oh no, yeah, everyone was jousting. There's horses everywhere. It was insane.
Yes, yes, that's true.
So, we talked about all the things that you've done, and I feel like it's a very impressive list, of course.
Oh, thanks, man.
But have you ever thought of picking a lane? Have you ever just thought, like, I know like comedy is your main thing, but like at the end of the day, like, have you ever been like, you know what, I'm just gonna do this. I don't want to deal with this. I know you talked about like how you don't want to rely on other people, but
yeah.
like, has there ever been like a time where you're just like, let me just kind of I want to do photography now. I just kind of want to do that now. Like,
I think maybe that'll come in the later stages of my life, and I have this fantasy about. Are you a West Coast person?
Me?
Like, were you born here?
Oh yeah, I'm born and raised in California.
So you know all about like St. Louis Obispo and all
yeah.
those coastal towns, those like sleepy coastal towns. I do have like this fantasy that someday I'll retire and be like old man photographer and have like stained glass windows in my like little tiny house and just like work on photos and be 70 years old and yada yada. But I also want to be a comedian because I think the older that I get, the more I'll have perspective on things and I'll have more to say that could help younger people save time in their life. And that was that was the reason why anything I ever did on YouTube ever blew up, because that was my whole mission statement on YouTube for a long time. And that changed my whole life, and that's why I'm living out here now, is based off of that like philosophy. So the older that I get, as long as my brain keeps working, I would like to keep doing comedy and being funny. But the last time that pick a lane thing was even presented to me was back in like 2009, is the first time I got the attention of like this high-powered music producer who taught me a little bit about how the business works versus how I thought the business worked. And the benefit to picking a lane is like, Ray, if you found me on TikTok one day, like we were saying before, or just anywhere on the internet, and you liked what I do, you can go to Mike and be like, check this guy out, he does this. And that conversation is short. You know, this guy does this thing, you know, and it makes you easy to market. People know what box to put you in, and there's a real benefit to like doing the one thing. Yeah. But I just think, just like some people aren't meant to be at an office job all day, I just think that my brain works in a way where I would be unhappy just doing the one thing. And like I said, I've lost a lot of opportunity and money and chances to do things by saying like, I don't want to do just that, or I'm not going to take this job where I just do this thing, and maybe be like super financially secure but unhappy, you know? It's just kind of like a bet you make on yourself if you have a certain mentality. And that's the other functionality thing about being the multi-hyphenate type person. It's like, I know that I'm like this, and I know the detriment to being like this. Yeah. So I know how hard I have to work to sustain myself. You know?
That's super. Yeah. It's we talked about it before. Like, just I feel like I'm from California, but I grew up in Bakersfield. I don't know if you've ever been there.
Oh yeah. I did comedy in Bakersfield. That's where the
wow.
Making bread, and then there's Bakersfield. What the
Bakersfield?
fuck is
That's
California?
where they make bread.
That's where they make bread in the Bakersfield. Makes sense. Makes sense.
Where are all these bakers coming from? Bakersfield of dreams.
Exactly.
But isn't that where like the Diamond Club or something Diamond?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I forget.
Yeah, I've been there before.
It's like right next to the gigantic Bakersfield sign.
Yeah.
It's interesting. But to the point I was trying to make, sorry, my desk almost just fell apart.
Oh, your desk almost fell apart.
I know, right? How the tables have turned. No, but like when I was living there, and no offense, because like some of my best friends are still there, and if you guys are watching this, I love you guys. But like, I feel like there are a lot of things that like in Bakersfield that it's like, it takes a lot to like leave your hometown and do something else, you know?
Yeah.
And I feel like when it comes to being multi-hyphenates, you always want more. And that's kind of what brought me out here, of course, and I'm sure it was the same for you, of course. Mm-hmm. And it's like there comes a specific mindset that you have to have with that, because there's like a mental fortitude that you need to have, because if you aren't particularly ready for, you know, what comes with being a multi-hyphenate, like, and you start like, if you tell somebody, hey, I'm a producer, hey, I edit, hey, I can also do photography, and then they're like, okay, I'll have you in mind for a project, and the next thing you know, like, you're doing 3 people's jobs for one thing, and then you're having panic attacks and freaking out. It's like that's kind of that's the job, you know, that's the whole thing. And it's, you have to be ready for that kind of stuff, because
and figure out some way to keep yourself healthy the whole time.
Yeah,
that's the hardest part. It's like you know, especially when you're young and you get jobs, you don't want to let your boss or whoever's paying you know that you're freaking out.
Yeah,
you know, and that's not always the healthiest thing. So you got to learn how to manage it, and that only comes with time and experience. But it's like you're you know, trying to figure out what's going on inside of you and trying to do a good job on this project, and it's a lot, and it's very overwhelming. But there is a way to kind of like, the more you understand about yourself and the way you work, and like your body and your mind, and figuring out when you need a break and when to schedule those in, it's like that all takes a long time. But once you got it dialed in, you become a very like efficient, very helpful asset to somebody else's situation or your own situation.
Yeah, and that also kind of segues into the next question. Like, how do you make time for yourself with that kind of thing? You know,
it's
like,
still real hard.
Where does that come from?
It's still really hard. Sometimes I'll recognize that, like, you know, maybe I'll make a bunch of mistakes and I'll be like, this has to, you're right, Mike. You know, I'm worried about you.
I'll put my leg up and like slip. You know when you can feel a cramp coming on?
Oh,
like I felt it.
Charlie horse.
Yeah. I was like, that'd be terrible, because then I'd just be like sitting here, just like, yeah, we're great, we're going on, while my legs
pretending
just
you don't have a Charlie horse. Yeah, so what I'm saying is you gotta be efficient, and you gotta learn how to take breaks. Yeah, and you gotta know when to sleep. Sleep is important. Yeah, man, I kind of recognize when I'm not going to be good at anything else that day. And I'll say, I'm done for today. I did it yesterday around 2 o'clock. I was like, I'm done today. And
I like
sometimes you could plan it out and be like, I'll be done in the middle of next month for a week, just so you know. But it's hard, because we, you know, in the back of your mind, that feeling, no matter how financially secure we ever become, I think I'll always have that early, like, entrepreneurial spirit where I'm like, if I stop for an extended period of time, everything goes away, which is not always correct. But it's like a feeling that you kind of can't shake. Maybe therapy could squeeze it out of me at some point. But like even during my honeymoon, a couple of years ago, I was like making stand-up flyers because other people wouldn't. And I was like, I'm in Mexico in a pool. And I'm like, who else is on this show? And like, why would I don't give a fuck about any of those people, you know? But just because other people wouldn't do it, I have to do it. And setting boundaries and listening to yourself is, you know, you can get real unhealthy real fast if you don't learn how to take breaks. You got to do it for yourself.
Absolutely.
It's a balance.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's, you know, it's hard to figure out, but it's definitely worth, that's another skill worth putting time into. It's like, you know, listening to yourself, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. This question goes for both Mikes because I'm not a comedian, of course. I mean, I say that. I mean, I don't do stand-up is what I try. That's what I mean. But what about comedy is it that draws you to it?
Mike?
Oh, you want me to go first?
Yeah.
I've been talking a lot.
All right.
I'm annoying myself.
Let's. My goal on stage is to say things. No, bump it. I'm just gonna quote the. Dang, what was the name of that documentary about comedians? I can't remember the name of it.
Comedians in Cars. You're talking about that documentary Seinfeld?
Nah. Oh shoot, I can't remember. It was like in the 90s. They got like all the big comedians and they got their like take on what comedy is. And the best thing that I can like quote on like what draws me towards comedy, one is I turned to comedy after I got injured for football. And I thought, you know, football was going to be the way, and it's like it's right there, everything's planned out, you know. I was doing good. I was averaging a sack a game, you know, got scouts looking at me in freshman year. Everything's great. Got into a car accident. Football thing's done. I ain't know what to do. I was always been like funny in conversation, and I just continued with that. But what draws me in towards comedy is literally society puts a line in the sand. Mm-hmm. And being a comedian, I get the special pass, the little badge that says comedy, fuck you, and I get to step over that line. Mm-hmm. I get to talk about things that people don't want to talk about. And now people will laugh, some people won't laugh, some people will yell at you, some people will become a heckler and like call you out on your bullshit, and then I'd be like, well, you're the only one not laughing in a room full of 12 people. So I was like, all right, cool. And it's like I get to step over that line in the sand and push that line back a little bit, even whether it's for like a short amount of time or a longer period of time, because I like to go with the rule. I don't think I came up with it, but just for the sakes, I came up with it. The 75, wait, what is it? 75-15?
25?
Yeah, 75-25 rule. Where it's like, I want to get 75% of the crowd laughing and 25% of the crowd thinking. And if I can get more than that, then that's completely fine. Because if I'm going to talk about something, I'm going to make it in a funny way. And let's say it could be something such as, I don't know, gay rights, right? And I make a joke about the LGBTQ, all of it, plus, you know. And then someone in the crowd who's like more conservative against that is like, I make a joke about it. They're laughing. Because they're like, ha, my views. And then they think about it a little bit and they're like, that makes sense. Now you got someone who's now having a good time and also learning a little bit about it. Or if you have someone who is more left and stuck in their lane and you make a joke, you know, conservative-wise, boom, they're thinking about it and they're going to become open to conversation, because I said this at actually a marketing firm. If you can make them laugh, you can make them listen. Yeah. So it's like, that's what draws me into comedy.
And it's a good way to you know, like you're saying, it's like we're so divided now, and we're not super different from each other. We just like feel strongly about things. And you know, everyone talks about like the trite, oversaid dream about the whole world is that we're all together and we're all living in harmony and blah blah blah, and people don't practice that. People practice like, I'm me and this is what I think and fuck you. You know, people don't practice what they preach. But if you can get a room full of people with a bunch of different backgrounds together to laugh about the same shit, we're all laughing in the room and we're all, you know, on the same ground, on the same page for however long. You know, so really beautiful things happen in comedy clubs, and really ugly, terrible things happen in a comedy club, and it all happens on the same night a lot of the time.
That's the reason why I started laughing. I was like, some beautiful things happen as I'm sitting here thinking of the guy who threw a bottle at another dude's head. And I was like,
yeah, it all happens. That's the other thing is there's no, you know, my friend Brian Simpson, who's an amazing comedian, talks a lot about how there's no barrier of entry into being a comedian. Like, you can go to one open mic and say, I'm a comedian. And there's no HR department, and there's no one who's ever going to fire you or tell you to quit. So you get all different types of people. But the types of people who tell you about themselves and explain how they see the world and how that was molded by their background or whatever, like, that's how you identify with people, and that's how you bring people together into a shared experience. So it can be a really beautiful thing, but, you know, anyone could do it for a variety of different reasons. Like, a lot of people just want to be a comedian because it's a cool, fun, seemingly job to have. And they don't know what goes into it or how much work or how much you have to sacrifice and be away from other things that you really love. And that is what people have to fire themselves, you know? So it's like you have to figure out why you're really into it. And there is a really beautiful aspect of it.
Yeah. Absolutely. That's it kind of reminds me of excuse me, Aziz Ansari. He had this was after his whole situation with the date and whatnot, and he had a comedy special and he talked about it.
I had a bad date. The date went bad. Oh no.
Oh my god.
Ray, I gotta say, man, when you lose it, you lose it. I love it.
It's great. Hey, it's something's funny. I can't help it. But he talked about there's this point, I think it was at the end of the special, and he was talking about the whole situation, and then he brought it to like a really real level about, like, I don't remember the whole thing. I watched it at work like a year ago, but he was like, we only have so much time left on this earth, and you should go talk to your parents, talk to your grandparents, and just because, like, the time that you have left with them is like very, very important, because you don't know when that next moment is gonna come unless you make it yourself.
Yeah.
And the point, what I'm trying to make with this is, like, it's so, like, how you're talking about so many beautiful things can happen in a stand-up, and it's like you can go from laughing about a terrible situation to bringing people to tears, because, you know, you've given people the opportunity to laugh with each other and feel comfortable. And then the next thing you know, like, you're talking about real shit, because, like, that's what life is. And I feel like that's an important thing about comedy, is like you get the opportunity to, you know, relate to people, because that's why people are laughing, and then you kind of bring people's guards down and you kind of show them, you know, life is good when you're laughing, you know?
Yeah. I gotta say, I'm marking that you become a great comedian when you can turn somebody in the crowd, you know, crowd work. You can turn somebody in the crowd, you ask them how they're doing, and then they hit you with some real shit. Like, oh, my mom died yesterday. Mm-hmm. And they came to a comedy show to try to fix himself up. And I say you're a great...
right out.
Yeah.
You're being a bummer. Get out. You're bumming everybody out.
Yeah. Pretty much like that. Like if you can turn that around, because somebody like that, they won't be expecting it, and then you get the surprise laugh. It'll be funny to them in a way. So if you can turn somebody's like mood from like bummer, but I'm gonna come here to get myself happy, and you can crowd work them off that terrible situation into a great situation. That's the reason why, out of the blue here, Andrew Schultz, I think, is the best crowd working comedian right now. Man got out of a man in his show got out of prison like 2 weeks ago off a felony. And he turned that into a whole set. Was like, oh, we got to figure out what you went to prison for. And just got everybody involved. You know, this guy who's a felon, been in jail for like 2-3 years, right? Life's probably ruined because of the way we treat felons in the country. But, you know, he's sitting there and he's being a good sport about it. And everything turns around and it's all nice. You know, one dude was like, he's a murderer. And then he was out here renovating trucks. I don't know how the fuck you renovate a truck, but then again, I didn't know y'all was out in California breaking bread, so I was like, whatever.
Up into California.
You know, if you can turn that around, you get it's that's the joy from it. That's what I'm trying to say. That's the joy from it. That's when you cross over from I can come out here and I can come up with a set in my head and I can make people laugh, versus a comedian who's like, I came with a set. But you did some fuck shit. I'm gonna make fun of you about it and make everybody laugh, including yourself, and then continue with my set. And then you got the people who, you know, hecklers come in and then they just destroy them, murdered by words. I love it.
Yeah. Dude, that's why the crowd work stuff was always my favorite, is because you're never gonna see the same show twice. And that makes, you know, people are so horny about NFTs now. It's like, that's the original NFT. If you just come in, like there's 100 people who will never be in the same room together at the same time, and you talk to them about their life, you know, that show is never going to be the same twice. And it may not always work out, but that's the risk you take, you know, and it's the risk that puts everyone on edge, that like everyone gets the relief from it when it works out, you know. So it's the very best, most entertaining thing that you could do. And so many people talk shit about it, and that's because they can't do it very well. Yeah. And they put different emphasis on different parts of the art. But, you know, stand-up is great because you don't have to give a fuck about how anyone thinks you do it. Like, you do it. And if you're selling tickets, that means you're doing it.
Right. There's like you said, there's like no HR department. There's nothing there. It's like, it's just you, and if it works, it works, and that's how you know it's good. It's like, oh, I have people in seats. There it is. Right.
There's an HR department. It's called Twitter, but it works oppositely. So like, if people start canceling you on Twitter, you made it as a comedian.
But then we go back to, I don't know. I have so many mixed thoughts. But that was always like, I never want to like hurt anyone's feelings, because that's kind of the opposite of why you do it. You know, you don't want to do it to make somebody feel bad about themselves, but you do want to like, that's why I try to keep most of the stuff that I say about myself. You know, like I don't particularly identify with comedians, or I'll keep it on myself. A lot of the videos that I was talking about before in the life perspective stuff, I go back, and when I was learning how to do stand-up comedy, the woman who was teaching me how to write jokes was like, in your videos, there's a lot of like, you this, you blah, 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 and you need to do this, and people are like this. But what you really want to tell people is like, me. You want to turn all the yous into me's. And then you get to decide, as the audience member, if you identify with me, and that becomes our shared experience. I don't come at you like, because I don't know your life. I don't know what you were doing 10 minutes before the show. If I'm like, you know, when you're like this and your parents are like this and you're sitting in the chair like, you don't know anything about me. Why would you tell me about me? You tell me about you, you know? And but I forgot where I was going with that, but it started as a good point.
I understand it. I call it lying with a purpose. Because it could be a story, like, not even about you, but you just put me in there. Or you put in, like, your friends that don't exist. It's like, Steve ran a red light, got pulled over, and I don't know why, but I'm sitting in the passenger seat, all nervous. Cop walks up to my side of the window like I was fucking driving. Are we in Europe or some shit? I don't know. But it's like, and then like people who's been in like uncomfortable situations like that, they're like, bro, I've been there too. It was freaking crazy. It's like, whoa. I was like, yeah.
Yeah, comedy comes from truth, man. Comedy is I was taught that comedy is a way to tell the truth, and comedy is a way to solve a problem. So if you run your ideas, you know, you could say wacky things for the sake of wacky things, and I love that too, and I think it all has a place. But I think the best comedy is along those lines.
You okay over there?
Yeah, I'm just like, now talking about comedians is just like, you got there's different schools. Like, comedy is like acting. There's different schools of comedy, right? Even though nobody really tells you, like, you can go and take comedy lessons. Like, down here in Florida, we got the SAC Comedy Club, and they got open mics that they got going on, and they got comedy lessons on the weekends and whatnot. And they can teach you the different schools of comedy, but really, until you go out there and you be real with yourself, which that's where the truth aspect comes in. You got to be you, because you go out there and you can put on a persona, but that's not you. And then eventually that persona is going to fade, and you're not going to like it, and it's going to go away. But
you
then,
do like an imitation of a comedian until you realize how to be yourself.
Yeah,
is what happens.
And then you got people who tell the stories, you know, and then you tweak the stories with the little white lies. That just makes it a little bit funnier. Like Kevin Hart. Yeah, half of his shit isn't real, but you know, it's still funny at times. And then, you know, it's just this whole just art and balance of stepping on tiles, and some tiles you want to break through and some tiles you don't. And it's beautiful. It's very beautiful. And it's related to multi-hyphenate things because, like you said earlier, when you come into comedy and you become a comedian, you got multiple jobs that's stacked behind that comedian.
Yeah,
like as soon
you're a
as
comedian, you're writer, producer.
Exactly. You know, you jump into marketing because it's all you. It's 100% you. And until you do get a team, and if you don't even get a team, but until you do get a team, you're doing everything 100% you. If you set up a tour, you set up every single location yourself. You got your own email, they reach out to you if you get big enough for that. Or you reach out to them and it's like, oh, you got any open slots available? I'm a comedian. I can make my way across the country, yada, yada, yada. And then you become negotiator, businessman, freaking accountant, because now you got to, now you got to, now you got to pay taxes. You got to calculate how much gas is going to be to go there, what time I got to leave during the day. If you stack two shows close together, like, dude, travel put a agent. Show. Yeah, travel agent. You put a show in Raleigh, right? And then you got a show in Tennessee, Raleigh, North Carolina, and then you got Asheville, Tennessee, right? But the shows are a day apart. Mm-hmm. Come on now. Now that's going to be like a mistake right there. I mean, you can get from there to there in a day, but most comedy clubs are what? They're gonna start kicking off around like 7, go into the night, and then you're leaving throughout the night. You've already been up all day. You probably just drove in from another town, whether you've been there 2 days or not. You're gonna leave that night, drive all the way there, end up in Asheville maybe around 4. That gives you like a couple hours to sleep. Now, if you oversleep and miss your set, now that's gonna look bad on you because every single comedy club is gonna hear about the time where, oh, we booked this guy, he never showed up.
Right.
So it's just like,
yeah,
you gotta. There's a whole bunch of things that lack or stack onto that like comedian surface, and
that's the kind of
you,
thing that the people who just want to be a comedian because it sounds like a fun, cool job to have.
Yeah,
like that's what you don't think about.
Yeah,
right. Not that it's not a fun, cool job to have. It's just a lot more than everyone thinks it is at all times.
Oh, that's amazing.
Oh, exactly. Yeah. Well, I feel like we've been here for a good amount of time, about an hour and a half, and I feel like we've had a really good conversation. And
thank you very much for having me. I enjoyed talking to you guys very much.
Oh, we still got that closing question, dude.
Oh yeah, no, you could let me do this. I was getting there.
He's like, I've been trying to close this thing for an hour and a half.
Trying to close it since we started. No.
Well, see, his biggest mistake was bringing up comedy with two comedians because it's an art form.
I have no issue talking. This is a great conversation. I just know that
Ray hates comedy. You heard it here.
You heard it here first. All that laughing he does is fake.
Ooh, good God, no. I was gonna say, so I feel like we've had a very great conversation, and I really appreciate you being here, Mike. This is such an awesome conversation to have. I know you do shows every Thursday, right? At the in Burbank, is it?
Yeah, I have a reoccurring, I guess, residency you would call it for the time being at the Nightcap in Burbank, and then I'll be in New York from on the 22nd of July through the 24th at the Stand.
Okay.
I'm going to Portland sometime in September. I think September 8th, and then I'm just in and around LA every night of the week. In between those things.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
Well, I'm very excited. I'll definitely try to make it on Thursday because I definitely just remembered that. I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot because I was listening to Dynamic Banter the other day, and I was like, oh yeah, I forgot you have Thursday shows, and I'm like, okay, definitely want to go. We close out this podcast with a question that we ask everybody, and you don't have to have like a perfect answer, but what song would you describe for your life at this particular point in time?
Man, this is hard. So many songs. Remember
That's
that
what
Lamb
I
Chops
say.
Play Along?
Lamb
The
chops.
song that doesn't end?
Oh my gosh, yes.
That's what it feels like sometimes.
Leave it to a comedian, bro. I'm so happy that you said that because normally I'll be the one with like the songs that be out there and all the other hosts be like, oh, this one is kind of, it's about opening up to yourself. And then you got me as like Godzilla by Eminem. And I was like, why? It's like, I feel like a monster. I don't know.
Right. Yeah. I mean, there's 1,000 good answers to that question, but I guess... Or hungry like the wolf right now because I haven't eaten anything in a long time.
Shoot.
But
Mine, I would say, is whatever song Billy Joel was doing when he was having that meltdown.
oh, dude, what a gift that was. Stuff like that makes me so happy to live in the world.
Oh my God, that was the greatest thing. I was on the way home from I was on the way home to Bakersfield, and I was listening to that episode of the podcast. I almost got in an accident.
Dude, we've gotten multiple messages about how people almost get in accidents, and I would rather just no one listen to the podcast because it makes me worried. But
oh my God,
dude, we, me and my friend Steve have very fun conversations together, and we just, you find the right thing, and we'll lose it for an extended amount of time.
Oh my God.
Gonna have to start putting a warning before you start your podcast.
Yeah,
Don't listen to
very
this while
official,
driving.
Yeah, somebody else's voice, somebody else's very official sounding voice giving the rules of the podcast. That's not a bad idea.
Yeah, make Ray do it.
Yeah, you do have a great podcast radio voice.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I guess it's my turn for the song, huh?
Yeah.
You know what? Let's do "Let Me Clear My Throat" by DJ Cool.
Nice.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a
Why?
pull from the
What's the main
catalog.
thing?
Exactly. Like I said, I pull mine just like out of nowhere. It's like literally, because that's how I feel. Like that's how I feel right now. Especially talking with Mike. It's like, yo, I'm a comedian. I'm gonna come out on stage. I'm gonna say whatever I want to say. Y'all people gonna laugh, and if you don't, fuck you.
Yeah. Also, we're on the internet right now, and we're on a Zoom call, and we all have bad internet connections. So if I say freeze, you better freeze one time. Buy safe
Stop
food,
on a
you
dime.
Wait, I was like, oh, let me wait. I think this is the point. All right, Mike, let's get you out of here. Where can people find you?
My name is Mike Falzone, spelled MikeFalzone, and I'm at Mike Falzone on most things. There's MikeFalzone.com, and I think my TikTok is Mike Falzone Comedy.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for being here.
Thank
And
you
for
for having
everyone listening, yes, we love you
Yes.
here. We love you here at Strike a Spark.
Yeah.
Dude,
You want me to do the
very
outro, or
happy.
you gonna do the?
Do you have a quote ready? Because I don't have a quote ready.
Oh, I always have a quote ready.
Then throw the quote on me. Throw the quote
All
on me.
right, let's go with it. Let's go with it. Just like Ray said, Strike a Spark podcast. Thank you for coming. Thank you for listening. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Ray. Thank you, me, for being here. And I want
you, Taylor.
everyone. Oh yeah, producer Taylor. Thank you.
Thank you, Caitlin.
Thank you, Caitlin.
And remember this. If you get anything out of this podcast right here, do what you want to do throughout the day. Because when it comes down to it, if you burn yourself out, that time that you miss on that rest period is going to be tripled when you're burnt out. This is Strike a Spark Podcast, and we're your fire starters. Can't wait to see you back again to strike that spark.